Hi everyone, welcome back. How are you? Today I'm going to be talking about something that happened with me this week. We were back home from our trip, and my mom's friend was still in town, and my mom asked me to hang out with them one day, and she booked us appointments for her friend who is a tarot card reader, astrology, and numerology kind of consultant, I would say. And this friend of my mom's has been in our lives, I think, I would say since my teenage years, so probably 30 years. And she's someone that we all care about very much. So, of course, whenever my mom is able to get us in with her, I'm like, okay, it must be a sign. Let's go. So, this conversation today is going to be about my kind of insights into having a reading with her. So Pam is her name, and she's someone that's been doing this type of work. She's in her late 60s, and she's been a tarot card reader. She does astrology and numerology for 40 years, and she's like has a physical store, and is she's like the resident I feel like guru of Southern California. And in my younger years, I would always get a reading with her like once a year. And always I felt like I would take what she said with a grain of salt, but I always listened to her and definitely took what she had to say as something for me to consider, because she always did seem to be on track with most of her readings. And so in my life, I guess if I look back, she's one person that kind of always had kept me like one toe, I would say, in the spiritual world. But I think I've talked about this before. I wasn't ready to totally dive in. Like, she's the one that got me into stones. And so I got this huge book. And I think I've talked about that before, all about stones. And I remember it was when I lived in London, and I hauled that thing with me back to London, and I had a collection of stones. And there was always like an interest in these matters or in these things, but not like a calling, right? Like, it was more curiosity. And I believe that is because it wasn't my time, for sure. But I mean, she even, when I lived in New York, she had me get my first oracle deck, which she actually, I want to talk about this, and let me just grab it because it's right here. She had me get this oracle deck called Trust Your Vibes, and it's by Sonia Choquette. And this has got to be at least 20 years old or older than that. And the thing that, what I remember about this is not the deck itself, which I did use and I did really enjoy. And she had me put together a list, and this is actually, I have the date here. So I did this on June 23rd, 2008, and she told me to write down all of the things that I wanted in a partner. And not only all the things that I wanted in a partner, but also what an average Monday looks like for me. And it's funny because when I look at this list, it is exactly what came into my life. So in a way, she was having me manifest Richard, and we didn't meet until it would be, I guess, 4 years after I wrote this list. But I'm going into this history because I want you guys to understand first, like, this was the one person in my life that was consistent and I could go to for advice, and was, there for me and during all of the ups and downs of the teens and 20s and 30s. But so I when I moved back to California, I saw her a couple times, and of course, you guys know we were going through infertility issues, and every time I would go see her, the child stuff would come up, and she always would say that there was a child coming, and that everything was going to work out and all of that. And it got, obviously, I got so heartbroken by the fact that we weren't able to have children. I don't go and see Pam anymore. And it's not that I don't trust her, it's that I don't want to put my trust in something that, especially in that time of my life, was just so heartbreaking that I believed and I had every ounce of belief in my body, and it didn't work out, right? And what I think now is that she was seeing for sure it was coming up, because that's what I was holding the energy around myself to manifest, right? It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but that's where the focus of our relationship was at that time. So then there were many years I didn't see her, and then I had my awakening. And I remember I went, like, right after I did 5-MeO DMT, I went to see her. And I'm like, Pam, have you heard of this? Like, because my world was just blown open, right? And we had a talk about psychedelics, which is what she would call them, because in her generation, they did not call them plant medicines. But she said, and she told me that in her teen years, it was always around in her life. Like, she grew up in the 70s. So she said that for her it was LSD and DMT, and she took it to the point of almost no return. And so for her, she was like, I haven't tried 5-MeO DMT, but we did DMT, and I would never go back down that road because I don't need to. And I remember being like, why? Like, because I was so new to the whole thing. And she said, I don't need to. I'm already connected. I don't need to have those things to get me there. And I was like, I remember so this is now 2 years ago. I remember being like, interesting. Because this is someone that has lived her spiritual life her whole life. And she has a career out of it. So it's not like, she's dabbled. So I remember being like, wow. And so I told her my whole experience, and her just looking at me and being like, oh, wow, that's amazing, So fast forward to this week when we went for a reading, and they were just going to be like quick readings. But it's funny now getting a reading from her, because all of the cards that came up, she does first numerology with your name and your birth date, and then she does tarot and some astrology as well. So it's funny because now I can really follow what she's saying, aside from the numerology, because I haven't studied numerology, but everything else I could like riff with her on and ask questions and go deeper. And all of the cards were pretty much exactly where I imagined them, and it's not so in a layout. She has an interpretation of the layout, right? That's a true master in tarot, is not someone that just has the cards and says, oh, this card is the death card. So that was a card that came up for me, and she asked me, do you have any fear around change? And I remember being like, fear? Like, no, I don't have fear. And she said, good, because it's coming. And I know now that's the best card you can get. That's like, that means that I'm going to go through another metamorphosis, and I welcome those now, right? So no, I don't have fear around any of the cards in the deck. So I was really like talking to her more deeply about the positions and astrology. And so then it came up in her reading towards me that I need to explore channeling. And I said, well, I do automatic writing channeling, but I actually have been feeling a call to learn how to step aside and let them come through on their own through me as a channel. And she said, yeah, well, you have so many planets in Sagittarius, which is the center of the solar system, and that is the portal. That's the portal of channeling. And then I got really curious, because I then said, oh yeah, I know the eclipses are coming, and I know that the one in December is on the point of my sun. And she's like, oh, but the one in November? And I said, yeah, it's at 27 degrees of Taurus. And we both said the Palladians. So she knew about that this one coming up in November is the Palladian energy. So then she said, yeah, she started talking about me being an avatar. And I said, oh, I already know this. And I told her how told her about the Starseed hotline, which Pam is old school. I would be surprised if she even has a computer. So she didn't know about them. But I told her that I carried the Galactic degree, the Avatar, the Healer, and Mastership. And she was like, yeah. And I said, you when you're giving your readings, are you channeling? And she said, no, I'm not a channel. And I was like, just kind of dumbfounded for a second. I remember just sitting there kind of like shocked, because how this woman is like, to get an appointment with her, it's like sometimes a 6-month waiting period, and she is on it, right? So in my experience, when you are that connected, of course it's channeling, right? Like I don't know it in any other way. So then I was like, what? You're not channeling? And I went back because I recorded it and I listened to the conversation, which if I can figure out, I'll insert here. So she says, no, she's not channeling. And I said, so are you just in flow? And that's the only way I could kind of, I'm trying to understand her, right? Like she's using these spiritual tools and her life is, I mean, based on these tools, and she's interpreting the tools and giving information to her clients, but she believes through reading the tools. But then my mom asks, well, do you remember the readings after you do them? And she said, no. So I remember just kind of walking away from this, like, I want to see her natal chart because it wasn't resonating with me. Like, how could she not be a channel? I don't get it. And so then I asked my mom to get me her natal chart, which a lot of people don't want to share their natal information. And her being in this business, I imagine that she would be one of them. But she did actually share it with me. But of course, she doesn't want me to share it with anyone else. But here's what she said to me as she shared the natal chart. She said, I have Virgo rising at 0 degrees with Pluto on my ascendant, and Scorpio's in my 3rd house with Neptune and my North Node conjunct. I choose not to channel as I could get entangled. And I also have Pisces in the 6th house, which makes me sensitive to others and their goings on. So I'm looking at her chart and I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying. And a lot of this work comes through Scorpio, right? So especially if your North Node is in Scorpio, you're being called to this life. And I remember her telling me this. She would always call me her sissy or her sister. And I never knew why. I was just like, oh, okay. And also my mom is also North Node Scorpio. But I never got it. And now I understand your North Node is where you are going towards in this life, right? And Scorpio is all about the underworld and the unknown and spirituality and bringing forth that through this vessel. So her calling me her sister throughout my life was because of that. We shared that in common. But so then I'm looking at her chart and I asked her first, before she sent the chart, I sent her the degrees that I know of the Starseed points, which if you guys don't know, I will leave them below. But she said, nope, I don't have any of them. So then I went and I looked at her chart, and how it's interesting how she said she has Pisces in the 6th house, which makes her sensitive to others and their goings on. And that house, she has Chiron in the 6th house at 12 degrees of Pisces, which is actually the healer mark. And so I shared that with her. And I'm like now thinking, is it generational? She doesn't want to open herself up to be a channel, which again, we can channel in different ways. I always say, Gabrielle, the human vessel, isn't doing this work. It's coming through this vessel. Yes, I have to be on board with it and I have to kind of allow it to happen and not like put up all my defenses and my walls, right? But ultimately, when stuff comes through me, it's not my personality sharing it. So when I meet with Pam, I know it's coming through her, right? She has different wording around it, and it could be generational, but I really started to think, like, can we, all of the things that we learn in spirituality, and I'm going to go kind of in deep on this part, but do we as humans latch onto them as the tools that then make our profession or our career or where we're going in life? And in Pam's case, and again, it could be generational, she sees herself as a reader of tarot, astrology, and numerology, and she uses those tools to interpret the energy, right? And so then I started thinking, like, here we all are, taking these classes. So I have listed, I'm going to go through them, all the things that I have done to this point, and I'm going to talk about each one and how I use it now. Because the thing that is coming up for me is that we have these opportunities, and there are so many opportunities because we have the internet and we can learn anything. Where in Pam's day, she had to have a physical teacher, right? So she focused her energies on those three things, and that's what her business is around. But in our case, like, it's endless. Like, and I believe, like, we're being called to learn all of them as tools. And I've talked about this before, but like tools in the toolbox that you can pull on. But again, for me, it feels like to understand what the channels are bringing forth. So, or what the energy is bringing forth through you as the channel. So my first thing that I got into when I started my awakening process was crystals. And I was so fascinated. And I mean, I still am. I get pulled into those lives on Instagram all the time. But I thought, like, oh my God, I think I'm supposed to be a crystal healer. And when I signed up for shamanism, remember, it was called the Crystal Shaman, I think initiation, it was how she worded it. But my mind thought that it was going to be learning how to work with crystals. So for me, the gateway tool was crystals. And then came human design. And as you guys know, I still do use human design, and it became, for me, kind of, it feels like a portal into understanding someone's energy and also being able to explain their energy to them. So I think that of all the things that I've studied is an important like foundation, that's the word, to understanding how the vessel is here to move, right? And when you can work with, like, marry up your higher self and your spiritual self with the vessel, then you have flow, right? And if you don't understand how your vessel came here to move and how spirit came here to work through you, it's really challenging because it's like a guessing game. So for me, yes, human design ended up becoming a tool that I use. And when I give readings, though, I am definitely using the tool of human design, but then I also am tuning into the person, and I feel like I am channeling that reading, because for me, it goes deeper than the words, and it goes deeper than just having the blueprint of your human design. It's explaining and understanding how you move through the world, and then listening to what you have to say, and then like fitting the key into the lock of you. So then I also then learned Reiki, and Reiki is not something that I use, except for I do, I guess, on my dogs, but it ended up being a tool for me that I understand and I can let it go through me. But I learned through shamanism, which came next, that all of these tools are tools. When you connect with your center and your higher self, I don't think they need these tools of matter. So it's hard to explain, but like, let's go back to human design. It's so complex that it really helps to organize the flow of energy, so I can explain it in our dimension. But in the terms of Reiki, I don't use it because I know how to work with energy in an intuitive way. I know how to move my body and how to move the person's energy to make it move. So I don't need to, I don't know, I don't use that tool, right? Unless, like, the reason I feel okay using it with my dogs is that I'm usually targeting a specific area and just wanting to flow energy to that area. But when you're working with a human, it's way more complicated. It's not like you can just fill a vessel with energy without moving things through first, and then fill in. What I'm finding too, actually, is that when I move the energy through them, they fill it back up with their own energy and own light. I mean, I give in my own 8th chakra energy, but also I leave space for them to rise to the occasion to help move it through after it's, cleared, help fill it up with the where they are at this point in time. So yeah, for me, Reiki hasn't really been one that I use. And then I was like, so I want to learn tarot. So I got a tarot class, and it wasn't my thing. I think it's interesting, but I don't get messages through the cards. I don't get messages like that pop out to me, and I feel like, again, it feels for me like a hindrance, not a tool that helps me interpret. And then oracle cards. I do love oracle cards because I love getting and receiving the energy of other people, and the lessons, I guess, that they have put together in this package for you to explore your inner world. So I really have identified, and I actually do use oracle cards in my sessions with people, because before I even have that person physically but virtually in my space, I tune into their energy, and it's like a half an hour before, and I start to pull in what's going to actually come up in the session. And since I started this way of doing the work, always, it never fails. The oracle cards that I pull to support, and I create an altar for that person, always are around what comes up from them, from in their own words. And then I kind of know how to direct what's going to happen, and I'm never surprised at what they bring up. Never. So those oracle cards have become a tool that help me understand my medicine, and my higher self's medicine as a tool to work through, right? So I do use that one. So then shamanism came into my life, and that was the place where I really realized we can pull on the guidance and help from our other elements, like the stones and crystals and divination. But when you're using these tools, what I feel is that they reflect back to you your tool. I guess, like, that's what I'm trying to understand and explain, but I'm also understanding it, so bear with me. We are the tool. It's not that these outside things are going to be your calling. What's happening here, and why we're drawn to certain tools, is that they're going to be they are reflections of things that your soul already knows, and you're attracted to it because it's like it's wanting to turn that key on, to turn that center on, so that you remember, oh, this is what I can use to remember what already is inside of me. So the reason this came up as why I want to do an episode about this is because I think we really need to pull away from thinking, I'm going to be a tarot card reader, or I'm going to be an Akashic Records reader. I think we get too wrapped up in, I need a vocation, to understanding that all of these are supports to remember you. So then the next one I have on my list is nature. Nature is and was and has and remains the biggest support for me. If I look back to especially the time that I was studying shamanism, and I've talked about this, I wasn't able to go inward without being in nature. So being in nature reminds you who you are. You are from the earth. You are nature. You are literally a seed of this planet. So when you are in that vibration, it's a remembering of that energy, and then you can pull from that, from your roots, from Mother Earth, and from all of the allies to center you. And I mean, even that, I think, like, the first time I saw the Matrix was at the cliffs, and it was in that space in meditation, and it felt like that, I guess, that appearance of the Matrix became my reality, my new reality. But I didn't find that new reality any place other than nature, right? Like the nature and the water and the ocean and the birds, everything supported me up leveling, I guess, to the state where I can see the Matrix now. But I know nature is a tool, it's an ally. And funnily enough, the last, like, I guess 2 months, she hasn't called me. And I've talked about this, and I'm really feeling like, why is it not needed? What is happening? But I have decided that on this first eclipse, when this episode comes out, which is Friday the 19th, I am going to go and do ceremony on the cliffs. Even though I'm not being called, I want to see what happens, and I want to just be grounded in that energy again. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So then the next thing, and all of this was happening kind of at the same time. So I'm studying shamanism, but as you go down, you start opening up yourself, you're going to find that different things are going to start pulling your attention. So then I started listening to Molly McCord's podcast, and this is, again, probably like 2 years ago. And I got her, I think it was 2020, like, I don't know what she calls it, but like the year in a review kind of. And so I'm listening to it. I couldn't understand a word of it because I didn't understand astrology. So then it pushed me to then purchase her course on understanding how to read a natal chart. And so I would say I dipped my toes in astrology, but just so that I could understand what she was talking about and it would make more sense. But it wasn't feeling like it was calling me either. So that just became like on background. And then I then went to Gene Keys, which is, I'm still studying Gene Keys. And the Gene Keys are the second channeled information from human design. And it just goes in way more deeper on how you can utilize your channels and your gates to work on the shadows that you came here to work on. And the point of that is to contemplate the shadows so that you can be in the gift state most of the time, and once in a while ascend to your city or your enlightened state. And I just started the final module, the Pearl sequence, on that. So that's also going on. And I don't use Gene Keys. When I do a human design reading, I always talk about the Gene Keys and I explain the two because I want people to understand they do work together. But human design in itself is overwhelming. So Gene Keys is even, I always say, it depends on how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go. But again, it's one of the tools. And then I came to Akashic Records. And this one was a really big, like, when I heard about them, I was like, oh, definitely, I want to know if I could do that. And I think I've talked about this. I purchased a very expensive course, which did not teach me how to read the records. And then I found the Soul Tribe podcast and Lorena and Lucia. And I took their level 1 course and was able to learn how to channel the Akashic Records. And that tool, it's funny because Lucia told me in a reading I had with her, you will learn how to do this, but you're not going to become an Akashic Records reader. And that couldn't have been more true because I'm not an Akashic Records reader, but I use it as a tool when I need it. It's not something that I go into often because when you are connected to your higher self, you don't typically have a lot of questions, and the Akashic Records works on questions. So if I had questions, I can easily go and find the answers myself. But I don't typically use them, again, because I don't have questions. I mean, not to say I won't ever, but right now I feel in flow, and I love that I trust exactly where I'm at in this moment. When the girls, Lucia and Lorena, offered the level 2 class, I knew that was an automatic no for me, because I am not here to read people's records. And I believe that the closer you become to your higher self, you're going to get that. It's an automatic yes, because it's a tool that goes in your toolbox. It doesn't mean that you're here to be an Akashic Records reader. And I think it's getting to this place of understanding. Try not to put an expectation on why you're being called to something, and look at it as a gift of something to learn and expand your horizons, because all of these things are just things that are being remembered. You're resonating with it because you're remembering, I know this exists, I know this is real, and I want to reconnect with that part of myself. So then after the Akashic Records and learning how to do that, then Lorena introduced me to flower remedies, and then I got really into flower remedies. And for me, that was the vibrational change on this plane, I would say, because what happened is, and I've talked about this, the mix that she put together for me after doing a reading for me helped me to with some blocks. I had really deep-seated blocks around being seen and kind of being embodied, I guess, and feeling safe in this body. They really helped me to, I guess, get rid of that last lingering fear that I had around things. And from there, I then was also getting into flower essences, which that's a whole nother thing. And I have like a huge case of flower essences, again, to support me. It's like all of these things are a support system for you to grow. But all of these essences and the vibration of the flowers opened me up to plant medicine. And I truly 100% believe if I hadn't started with the flower remedies first, I would never have opened up my life to that world. Why? Because I wasn't a vibrational match for it. What I believe the flowers bring us is a remembering of that higher level vibration that is pure. And once you have that feeling, and you guys probably know, the flower remedies are on such a subtle vibration that you don't even feel anything. But a week later, you'll be like, wow, those problems that I had a week ago, I don't think they're problems anymore. But you don't feel like there's anything different in terms of your physical sensations. And what I now believe is that it's a remembering of, oh, these allies have been here for us this whole time. And we are able to either be in fear and say no, or we can incorporate them into our toolbox. So yeah, then came in the plant medicines. And for me, the first was Hape. And Hape is one that I was really into for, I think, the first 4 months before I moved to the next thing, which was for me ayahuasca. Since then, Hape is now just a ceremonial tool. I don't use it on very often at all. And the reason is, again, because what it helped me to get to is to understanding my center. But once I understood what my center vibration, I don't need to remember it anymore in some way. So I love having it as a tool, but it's not a tool that I need to get to my center, if that makes sense. And then the next plant medicine that came was ayahuasca, which you guys know for me is probably my master teacher. Why do I say that? I'm pretty, I would say I'm kind of tightly wound, and I'm very, the word that's coming up is conservative, but it's not, I don't mean conservative in that way. I mean, like, I want to understand things, and I'm very, logical. And ayahuasca helps me to find the playful side of myself, and it helps me to let go of this. Why do I believe I'm this way? I have my moon in Capricorn, and it's in my 4th house. So I believe that part of me that is very crucial and it's needed in this life, it gets to turn down a bit, and I feel free, and I feel like a more playful, more connected, and more like aligned person in ceremony with ayahuasca. And I've talked about this too, is that for me, it's not digging really deep into shadow work. They have shown me more energetic work that I can be doing, and how to stay off of other people's energy threads and all of that. But in general, it's a playtime, and it's going deeper into my higher self and the connection that I have with the universe. So that became a huge ally for me. And then the next plant medicine was psilocybin. And I just did that with microdosing. And honestly, it's such a subtle, again, it is really like the flower remedies, because it works on such a subtle vibration that you don't feel anything. It's not that, it's that it's just attuning you back to the heart center and to flow. And to be honest, like, I don't do it consistently. I think it is a nice, beautiful ally once in a while, but I haven't needed it on a regular. Then from actually ayahuasca, what I realized is that sound is everything, right? And sound healing. And for me, in a ceremony with ayahuasca, it's the music and the icaros that bring you into that space and help you to let go of the mind. I always say that the music and the icaros are the side door into you, because you're like sitting there like, okay, when am I going to feel this? And the music is actually coming in the side of you and bringing you into the journey, and you have to let go into the music. So I realized with that tool that the sounds and the musics that are sacred are just so much more special than I ever had realized. And so I have gone now to a few gong healing sessions and music bowl sessions, and also I then introduce you guys to the sonic slider, which is another vibrational tool, which again is tuning us up, remembering who you are. And all of these things they're gifts to us. They really are gifts to us to remember your gift, your vessel. So why am I talking about this today? I think that it's to really help you guys to anchor in the idea that be open, play, enjoy all of these modalities and these tools, because they are here for us to find that channel inside. Now, even if you don't think you are a channel, and just like Pam, she's definitely channeling. Like, this is the funny part of it, is that as I sat there, the reason I got so flabbergasted by what she was saying is she was channeling. But she's channeling because she lets herself go in the tools. And I really think that is the goal of all of this, is like, if you want to be able to help others and to read for others and to feel into the other, you have to let yourself go. There's no place for the mind in any of this. And I've talked about this many times. The only way I can do healing is because I'm not involved. I literally am back here, and I let it work through me. And I don't have a preconceived idea of what that looks like, right? And as I've said, I think I've said this before too, the way that I do healings is not how I was taught. And I don't think anyone is supposed to use any of these tools and how they're taught. What happens is it's just a reminder of how you do energy, how you move it through, how you are able to heal, how you are able to give people the messages, and trusting that place, not the tool. I don't think it's the tool that we're here to trust. It's you, and it's going back to that center space of you. And I've been feeling this as well, is that I have been being called back to astrology. Now this is like a year and a half later, all of a sudden it's like everywhere for me. And it's like, I have this like insatiable thirst for knowledge around astrology. And I think that's great. I'm so happy that I have that feeling coming up again, because astrology is like this, I feel like it's this never ending universe of information. So I don't have a, like a, oh, it must be because I'm supposed to now start offering astrology. No, I don't think I'm an astrologer at all, but I think I'm here to understand and use it as a tool. And does that mean as a tool to help others? I hope so. I hope so. I hope that it helps me become a better healer and to be able to be like more rounded in understanding the vessel. So also one of the things Pam brought up to me was that in the work that I'm doing, I need to start incorporating everything into one session. So like right now I have a separate human design and then a healing session. And her recommendation was I need to start bringing in other tools to support the vessel in this transformation. And I can see that. It's just, oh my gosh, all of these things take so much time. So I have to think about how that would work. But at the same time, I can totally see what she's saying, because all of these are tools for us to help each other. And we have to embrace that we're multifaceted beings that are not going to be able to be labeled into one box. And I'm sharing this because I really want you guys to understand, open up your horizons. Don't keep your head in the sand on one thing. They're all here for us to understand, and they're all here so that you remember why you're here. And I want to see that part of you guys too, because I think that's the gift. So I really hope to see that in all of you. I really, really, really hope that you guys start trusting from that place of, I get it. I feel the call. I'm going to do it. I have no expectation, but I know it's calling me. And that's it. And that's it. I hope this is helpful. And we have the next Energy Tribe chat this coming Monday on the 22nd, and it's at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I would love to see you guys there. It's a beautiful open space for everybody's energy. I learned so much from everybody, and it really has become a circle of sisters that I wouldn't be able to have physically. that came up too, and with my reading with Pam, is that the reason that I learned how to do this and I came to this at this time is that I'm able to do it remotely. Like I can do it virtually, because for me, energies in person are so overwhelming. Most of the time I can't handle it. And I think like how Pam works, she literally is in her shop and people come and see her all day long. I couldn't handle that. I know I would have a really hard time. So we talked about that, and she said, but isn't it interesting that you learned how to do all of this remotely or virtually? Because you don't have to invite people into your physical space. That was for another time. If you are out there and you're able to have that physical connection with people and feel able to stay in your body, then that's great, and that's a gift that you carry. But some of us really, we don't. I do not. Even with people that I care about and I love, I have such a hard time being in their energy for too long. So I have to look at that as also a gift, I mean, technology, for all that it is that people don't like about it, there are ways that the spiritual community is able to use it for our advantage too. We are highly sensitive beings, and we need to really honor that and be okay with that's how we are, and use the tools, another tool that is here to help us on this path.